Good morning. It's July 31st, and this is to my liberal friends. Do you think the Republican majority in the House of Representatives can actually function as a majority and set policy for the nation? This was the promise that was made if only the voters would make them the majority party. Now, I'll be honest with you, I was hopeful that the Republican majority would coalesce around their speaker and put the Democrats on their heels. The agenda they put forth during the election was bold and could be transformative to the nation. But reality set in from the outset. Kevin McCarthy was the man who had delivered the majority. He had crisscrossed the country campaigning for candidates. Then the votes were all counted. The Republicans had secured a majority, albeit a slim one, and not the red wave that so many had predicted. Immediately, the far right of the party, the Freedom Caucus, started making demands that the Speaker designate would find difficult to make. Because he had only a majority of 222 Republicans and 213 Democrats. That meant that only a few Republicans would have to bolt and the Speaker would be unable to pass a piece of legislation. I think that we all can remember the marathon of votes that transpired to finally allow Kevin McCarthy to ascend to the Speaker's gavel. But it was not without making some concessions to the Freedom Caucus. They demanded and won seats on the Rules Committee and other key positions. One of the first things that Speaker McCarthy promised was a more open House of Representatives. No longer would there be a closed rule which prevented individual members from offering amendments to bills on the floor. No longer would there be continuing resolutions and massive omnibus bills. It would be regular order with the committees working on bills and moving them to the floor. No longer would all the major bills be written in the Speaker's office, then passed along a party line with no chance to actually read the bill. And for the first 7 months of this Congress, it's been a struggle to get things passed. The Democrats still remain united and vote as a caucus opposing just about everything the Republicans bring to the floor. That means the Speaker cannot afford to have defections, and this has been a major problem. This past week, the House members left town for 6 weeks, and to this date, they have only passed on 12 government funding measures. They've had some ugly floor fights that forced the leadership to pull another bill due to party infighting over abortion riders and cuts. The Freedom Caucus keeps demanding that language on abortion be included in any appropriations bill, and in addition, they're demanding larger spending cuts. They've all but forgotten the debt limit agreement reached between McCarthy and President Biden. It was a win for McCarthy and called for limited increases in government spending and penalties if they tried to exceed those numbers. But now the lawmakers are openly talking about some form of a short-term fix, otherwise known as a continuing resolution, something they said they would no longer tolerate at the beginning of the year. Normally you would think that the House could pass a bill they wanted, and the problem would come from negotiating with the Democratic-controlled Senate. But by failing to move these 12 appropriations bills in June and July, they're going to be forced to accomplish a great deal in September to address the funding of the government for the next fiscal year. And even if they wanted to pass a CR, there's no guarantee they could get that done with the chaos that the Freedom Caucus continues to cause. Over in the Senate, things have been going much smoother. The Appropriations Committee has cleared all 12 spending bills prior to the August recess, something they had not done for several years. It's expected they will be able to move through the bills in an expeditious manner when the Senate reconvenes in September. That will put us up against yet another deadline for the House to act, and the promise of regular order will have evaporated. The Congress will be forced to pass a continuing resolution to keep the government funded, and absent that, any department or agencies that have not seen their appropriations bill passed will have to shut down. The Freedom Caucus, and I refer to them as the Freedom from Governing Caucus, has vowed to fight on every bill, and their leader, Scott Perry, a Republican from Pennsylvania, has vowed they will not back down. What these political neophytes don't understand is that unless you have control of the Senate, and ideally the White House, you can only accomplish so much. Most Republicans agree with what they want to do, but they acknowledge that they have to make some compromises to get what is doable done. I wish the conservatives would figure out that winning is the key to getting things done, but they insist on their way or the highway and put their Republican colleagues in a bind. In the last elections where they won a slim majority, they had to flip several key districts from blue to red. But those districts cannot be kept if the right wing of the party insists on having their way, because they come from ruby red districts where they don't have to worry about an election. The Republicans in the House have to realize they need a large tent to include some members that might not be as conservative as they are. They need to learn to do what is doable and then work on increasing their majority and helping to flip the Senate in the next election. Passing the appropriations bills and keeping the government funded is a first step in that direction. If Republicans demonstrate to the voters that they can govern effectively, then they increase their chances of producing the red wave that so many thought would appear in 2022. With an increased majority in the House, control of the Senate, and a Republican in the White House, then fiscal sanity and order can be delivered to the nation. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe and recommend it to your friends.